It may seem wacky and insane, but it's absolutely true. The American Revolution directly led to a small, but rising Austrian colonial empire. The part of this that's fun for the whole family is that this profit was pure, unashamed war profiteering, and I have nothing but respect for the grind. Let's find out how the Austrian Habsburg Empire tried to make the big bucks during the American Revolution. Some quick background. Austria had tried to get into the colonial game earlier in the 18th century, and by all accounts it did quite well. Austria had a few land concessions in India, and from there they would primarily purchase tea and import it to Europe. The tea trade is going to be central to this story, so keep that in the back of your mind. This early colony was doing well, but there was a little problem. Its competition was much stronger. The British, French, Dutch, Portuguese, Spanish, and many more already had enough competition amongst themselves and really didn't want the wealthy Habsburg monarchy putting their fingers in the pie as well. So the British and Dutch made Austria close the company in the 1731 Treaty of Vienna in exchange for recognizing the right of female heirs to inherit Habsburg holdings. It was a good attempt, but it doesn't really involve any war profiteering, which doesn't make it as interesting as the second attempt. Now, Austria was not going to let some binding international treaty signed by great powers stop them from making a little dough, but the right moment needed to come before Austria could try again. Whoa, what's that? The Americans declared independence and now every major European maritime power is involved in a global conflict causing the price of Asian goods to skyrocket? Finally, the jaw will have its day in the sun again. An experienced Anglo-Dutch merchant, William Boltz, who was already employed by the Austrian Empress Maria Theresa before the war, moved in to take full advantage of the situation. Boltz kicked the establishment of Austrian trading posts into high gear in 1778, when Britain was officially at war with France, Spain, and the Netherlands. Much to the dismay of the eternal Anglo, Boltz aligned himself with the Indian state of Mysore, which granted permission for Austrian trading posts to be built along their coast. In July of 1778, another Austrian trading post was established in the Nicobar Islands. There was even a small Austrian base established in what is now Maputo Bay, Mozambique. Okay, this one was kind of a bad idea because the Portuguese weren't distracted by a war and kicked them out a few years later. But the colony was there for a few years, and that's what counts. Now, Boltz had effectively revived Austrian colonial ambition, but there was still a problem. He wasn't really making much money. One of Boltz's investors, a Belgian banker, Charles Prolly, went above Boltz's head appealing to Austrian Emperor Joseph II, asking for control of the company. Boltz yielded to Prolly, and the company was reorganized in August of 1781 into the Imperial Asiatic Company. This is where the war profiteering kicks in. The new vision of the company was to take advantage of the extremely high demand for tea in Europe. With Austrian bases now secure in Asia, the infrastructure was there to take advantage of wartime trade conditions. Now Austria could start raking in the big bucks. Austria, a great power with like the smallest coastline, had a legit shot on monopolizing the tea trade to Europe. The French, British, Spanish, and Dutch were really going at it by 1781. The British trade fleet in Asia was devastated by raiding, not to mention the British dealing blows themselves. From 1781 to 1783, of the belligerent nations of the American War of Independence, only 4 British ships succeeded in a trade mission to China and back. The Imperial Asiatic Company dispatched a fleet of 5 ships to China. No threat of raiding, just neutral, in their lane, unbothered, focused, moisturized. Austria was about to have a big payday coming its way. Here's where everything falls apart. In January of 1783, an armistice was signed. America got its independence, Britain was holding a big fat L, and the maritime powers weren't at war anymore. When the voyage of the Austrian ships was complete, the Chinese port of Guangdong was already inundated with European trading ships. The new rush to buy tea forced the late Austrians to buy at a high price, and when they returned to Europe to sell their tea, the price had already crashed. By 1785, the Imperial Asiatic Company was bankrupt and its assets sold. There were a few Austrian holdouts, particularly trading posts in India, that would stay around for a few more years but accomplish nothing of note and never expand. Other European powers would move in on Austria's small colonial posts and take them over. By the mid-1790s, there was nothing left. No more imperial eagles were flying over far-flung settlements in the east. The Austrians had tried to take a shot at a profitable colonial trading empire, but fell flat in the end. The lesson to be learned from all of this is, if you're going to try war profiteering, just make sure you do it as soon as possible. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, give it a comment, maybe even a little subscribe action. I'll see you soon with another one.